Right, hi guys, we're on pulled pork today. I hope you're going to enjoy this one. So first off, I'm going to prepare a little bit of vegetables as a sort of base for the pork while it's cooking in the slow cooker. I'm using 3 stalks of celery here today. I'm just going to give them a wash, just give them a thorough wash inside the stalk, make sure there's no muck harbouring in there. Here we are, I'm just going to top and tail this celery and chop it just into very, very, very rough chunks here. You could eat this at the end of the cooking process, but I tend not to. I'm just using this as a flavour giver for the pork. Same goes for the onion, so I'm using 1 onion, so just a rough chop on the onion. And finally a couple of carrots, but this time I'm going to peel them. There we are, so I'm just going to top and tail the carrots and a very, very rough chop on these. So, that'll do nicely. So, now my pork, today I'm using some really, really simple seasoning for the pork. So for today, I'm going to use some paprika, I don't know, a couple of teaspoons of that. I'm going to use some mixed herbs. So I know that's gone out. So again, probably something similar. A couple of teaspoons of that. I'm going to use a little bit of black pepper. So probably about half a teaspoon maybe. Or maybe even a teaspoon. And I'm going to use some salt. Obviously, all chefs love salt. Here we are. So I'm giving this a good twist of salt here. So I reckon that's probably a good couple of teaspoons there. Here we are. I'm just going to give this a small mix up with my hands. Now you could use plenty of other herbs. This would work really well with some nice fennel seed. It would work really well with some sage. It would work quite nicely with some thyme. Well, there's lots of stuff you can experiment with. And pork is a natural bedfellow for apple as well. So you could get some apple into your slow cooker. You can get other aromats into your slow cooker. You can get some garlic into your slow cooker. In fact, you know what? We will put some garlic in. Yeah. I've got a few cloves of garlic here. And I'm just going to give them a quick crush with the back of a knife. That'll do. They can go in too. And now my pork. So, as always, supporting your local butcher is a great way of helping keeping the local economy going. Helps reduce car miles, carbon footprints, which is all good, but I know that sometimes that's not possible. So I have here a piece of pork shoulder from the supermarket, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the string off of this and I'm going to rub this rub that we've created here all over. I'm going to get it into the fat, into this side here. You could introduce some sweetness to this as well if you fancied it. You could introduce some sugar, some dark brown sugar if you wanted to add, rub in some sugar, that would be nice. You could introduce some maple syrup or some honey. You could rub that in at this point. You can do a lot of stuff. You can really experiment with this, try different herbs and different marinades and different rubs. So like so, I've got all of my paprika, herbs and seasoning rubbed into this, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this in the bottom of the slow cooker, cover with my, like so, cover with the aromats here, cover with the vegetables. Yeah. We'll put the lid on. And I'm going to introduce a little bit of liquid into here. So I'm going to use a chicken stock. So I'm going to use, today I'm going to use a little bit of chicken stock in there. Just about a cup of chicken stock. It's not absolutely essential. I'd probably wager that without the chicken stock, this pork will cook down quite nicely in the slow cooker, but the chicken stock will just keep it nice and moist. Instead of using chicken stock, you could use cider, you could use some white wine, you could use some beer, you could use all sorts of things in there. But chicken stock's probably a cheaper alternative to opening a bottle of cider. So I'm going to use about half a chicken stock cube here, and just give my kettle a wee boil. So I'm not really measuring this. I don't need too much of this liquid in here. So I'm using, let me see, here we are, 150 mils. There we are. And I'm cooking this on low, 8 to 9 hours. You could speed up the process. You could cook this on a medium heat for about 6 to 7 hours, or on a on a high heat for 4 to 5 hours. So to go with our pulled pork, we're going to make some, I'm going to make some pickled cucumber. I want to show you guys like the easiest pickling recipe you'll ever use. So this is a 1, 2, 3 pickling recipe. It's literally 1 part sugar, 2 parts vinegar, 3 parts water. And the easiest way to measure these parts is just with the eye, using whatever amount you're looking for. You know, for today I'm pickling a whole cucumber. You basically need enough pickling liquor to cover whatever it is that you're pickling. But anyway, you'll get the idea. I'm also making more pickling liquor than I need because I've got the biggest saucepan in the world here. So, right, so here, 1 cup of sugar, in it goes. Then 2 cups of vinegar. I'm just using a clear malt vinegar for this. So you can experiment a bit here, I guess. You could use some nice fancy vinegars if you wanted. You could use a white wine vinegar. You could use a cider vinegar. But this malt vinegar costs somewhere in the order of about 30p a bottle. So this will do me nicely. So 1 sugar, 2 vinegar, and then 3 water. I'm just putting this on a high heat. I'm going to bring it to the boil. I want that sugar to dissolve in there, so bring it to the boil. While that's boiling, I'm going to prepare my cucumber. So what I'm doing, this is optional. I prefer mine peeled. You don't have to peel it. You can do this whole if you wish. It's probably an argument for keeping it whole in terms of nutritional value from the cucumber. You get most of the nutrients close to the skin. I just prefer it peeled. I just prefer the flavour, the texture. So it's my show, so I'll do it if I want. Yeah. And then all I'm going to do is slice it as uniformly as I can. There we are. So you can fancy it up a bit if you want. Slice it on the bias, on a bit of an angle, so you get an angled slice of cucumber. But this here, this pickled cucumber, will go really, really nicely with the pulled pork. Pork can be quite fatty, so the likes of this pickled cucumber will really cut through that. There we are. And once my pickling liquor here is up to temperature. I'm going to add the cucumber in, and then I'm going to take it off of the heat, and it's ready once it's cooled. So you can add herbs and spices in here if you like. I quite often use coriander seeds. Mustard seeds are really nice in here. You could get some bay leaves in there. You could get a bit of dill in there. You could put whatever floats your boat. Experiment with different things to pickle. But for today, I'm keeping it just simple. We're just going to have just the cucumber in with a pickling liquor. Here we go. We're in business. So you will see. I'll try and not burn my fingers. So you'll see pickling liquor is boiling. All I'm going to do, cucumber in, and then turn the heat off. And that's it. And this will keep, I'll be honest with you, I don't even know how long this will keep. It just gets destroyed in my house, you know. If you sterilize jars and kept it in a sterilized jar, you certainly get a good couple of weeks out of this, probably longer. But honestly, I reckon once you taste this, it will soon go, you know. This works really well with, works really well in a nice sandwich. Bit of ham, bit of cheese, bit of pickled cucumber, delicious. I've been eating it all my life, no problems. Right. Okay, so pickled cucumber's cooling here, and while this cools down, I'm gonna make a coleslaw. Today we're making a really simple slaw. You can, as with anything and everything we do, you can zhuzh this up a bit, take it to the next level. I'm making mine with a mayo today. So I've got a cabbage, just a white cabbage, cutting it in half, roughly about the same. And I reckon, depending on how much you love slaw, I reckon half a cabbage will probably do us for the pulled pork in brioche today. So all I'm doing with the cabbage is just peeling off any outer leaves that are a little bit discoloured. But you'll see this is really tightly cooled together like this. I'm going to halve it. I'm going to shred this as finely as I can and put that in my bowl. So. You could use a food processor if you've got one. And it won't be the end of the world if it's not super thin, but do try and get it fairly thin if you can. So, cabbage. So to that half a cabbage, I'd say that's probably a small to medium cabbage. And to that I'm adding a small to medium onion. I'm going to use, I reckon it'll probably take 2 halves here. All I'm doing with the onion is just slicing it, again, thinly, and I'd say slicing your onion thinly is probably even more critical than slicing the cabbage thinly. You don't want to get big sort of clumps of onion through it, so, yeah. So to that half a cabbage, I'm using a full, sort of small to medium-ish onion. And then I'm going to add 2 carrots, which I'm going to grate. Yeah, so I've got the cabbage and the onion. I'm going to grate the carrots. What have I got here? I've got a sort of tiddler and a medium-ish one. So I'm going to grate it on the large side. There we are, a bit of carrot in that. And I'm going to add, I'm doing this one just with mayonnaise. And I'm using cheap shop bought mayonnaise. Feel free to make your own mayonnaise. How much mayo? Enough mayo to make it a slawy, loosish sort of texture. We don't want this to be a sea of mayonnaise with the odd little bit of vegetable in it. Equally, we don't want it sort of dry as a bone. So I always work on the principle that you can put more in, but you can't take it out again. So I'm going to add another few spoons of this. You're never going to get exactly the same size cabbage, the same size onion, the same size carrots and whatever, you know, but this is a 500-gram jar of mayo. And I reckon I'm going to use pretty much the lot of it. It's also interesting when you see how much supermarket charge for something like a coleslaw, like not the cheap vinegary stuff, but like the proper stuff. You know, it can make it at home a lot tastier and a lot cheaper than in the shop. Here we are. Yeah, I'm going to use a lot of this. So a bit of yogurt does help if you want to try that. Here we are. So, got a slaw. I'm just going to have a wee check. A wee check for flavour. We are going to need to season this, but I'll just see where we're at right now. Oh, very nice. You know what? I'm not going to add any salt. I don't think I've used that brand of mayo before. I think that'll do me nicely. Yep. Feel free to experiment. If you do have a bash at this, feel free to try different brands of mayo and such like. But I would, yeah, I'd suggest before you season it, have a wee taste first. Okay, so pork's been cooking now for about 6 hours, just on low still. So what I'm going to do, oh, it's smelling good. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take the pork out because I want to get rid of the, I want to get the, take the skin and the layer of fat off of this. So all I'm going to do is just lift it out and I want to put it on my board. And I'm also going to, I'm going to strain off all of the vegetables and the cooking liquor in here. So this is the juices from the pork, juices from the veg, all coming in. Very good, put that back in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably not going to use all of this cooking liquor here. I'm going to use about 1/3 of this. And then I'm going to retain this just in case I need to add any more moisture to it. So, for the pork skin and my pork fat, really, really easy to take off. All I'm going to do, look, it's just literally, this is just falling apart. So, the skin, by all means you can eat this as is, and you can eat the fat as is. You don't have to do this step, but there are quite a few people that are not that keen on solid slabs of pork fat. I'll probably eat it. Here we are. But this is what helps it keep moist during the cooking process. So we just take off. Like, I don't want to get rid of all of the fat here. I still want a little bit of fat. And the skin that we've got here, so the pork skin here, that'll make excellent crackling. All we need to do is like just scrape the fat off of that, put that in a hot oven and we'll get some brilliant crackling from that. So here, and what I'm looking for, I'm going to be taking this, so it's pulled pork. So the whole idea behind the pulled pork is that it's something that's cooked low and slow and that will literally just pull apart. If I can see it's doing this on my board as is. So I think we are probably a bit closer to this being ready than I first thought we would be. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to put this back in the slow cooker in chunks, and I'm going to add a little bit of barbecue sauce to that. I'm using just a bought barbecue sauce. Now you could totally elevate this. You can make your own barbecue sauce. Some brilliant recipes out there. I'd make one here, but Aidan would probably kill me. So I'm just using a cheapy bought barbecue sauce. So I'm just gonna squirt in probably a couple of dessert spoons of that. Here we are. In this goes. All I'm doing is just with a fork, I'm just pulling it apart. So I've got some parts that are pulling apart really, really easily, really quickly. Some parts there's a little bit more resistance. So it still needs a little bit more of a cook, but not much of a cook. So I don't know if the cameras can see in here, but what we've got is our pork now, mainly shredded, just sat with the pork juices here. I reckon we're about another half an hour to an hour away, although this will quite happily sit away on low, bubbling away for a couple of hours more. Like, there's no desperate rush. Okay. Right, so pork's been cooking out here now for about another hour or so, and before we go any further, I've just realised I said I was going to put some barbecue sauce in there, and I never did. So I am going to put some in now. So it doesn't really matter. I could have put it in before, or put it in now. Main thing is that the pork stayed hydrated. So over the last hour and a half since I shredded it, what I've been doing is just from time to time, just topping it up with a little bit of the cooking liquor. So just a tiny bit at a time, just to make sure that this pork stays nice and moist in there. So this is exactly what I'm looking for. It's not pork soup, so it's not totally sitting in solid liquid or anything like that, but it's still nice and moist. So the other thing, another two things. I talked about the skin, so we took the skin and the fat off of the pork. I'm not very good at making crackling. I don't know why, it's such a fundamental, easy thing, but I always seem to horse it up. So I've got crackling here in various shapes, sizes, and colours, and yeah, some of it's burnt and some of it's okay. If you like crackling, whack it in the oven just on a high heat like I've done, but I'm sure yours will be better. And then season with a bit of salt. You could put this in your bun with the pulled pork and the pickles, or you could just, have it on the side, or I don't know, there might be someone in the house who likes crackling. Anyway, shame to bin good pork fat and pork skin. The other thing to say as well is we've got the leftover veg, and I've been trying to think what to do with this. I mean, in theory, I suppose you could plate up, you could do some, you could put this back into the pulled pork if you wanted, I mean, it would eat well. I'd say maybe some of the adults are probably going to be more keen on that than some of the young ones, So, but what you could do is do a nice bubble and squeak with it. Maybe if you had some leftover mash, you sort of fry it up with that. I think it would work well. Anyway, to the pork. This pork we're doing today with like brioche. So I've just bought some brioche buns. I've got a brioche bun. I've not been allowed to make brioche today. The cameraman producer is on me for time. Here we are. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to load up this brioche. I think one of the joys of doing something like pulled pork in a bun is to not be mean. I mean, that's probably been a bit of a theme in my life for eating, so there's probably room for being a little bit more mean with what I eat, but anyway, I'm not going to stop now. What you want is some really nice, generous, amount of pulled pork. I'm putting on top a couple of these pickles here. So these pickles that we made earlier. An eagle-eyed out there might have spotted I'm using a pretty cheap and cheerful, generic supermarket own brand barbecue sauce. You can definitely improve on things if you make your own, or if you buy one, but a better quality one. But for the purposes of this will do just fine. So here we are, finally, a bit of the slaw we made earlier. Realistically, I reckon this slaw, wow, 4 hungry people are going to eat well, I reckon you've got enough for probably 10 to 12 brioche buns, stuff like that. A little bit of pork on top. There we go. Here we are, bit of pulled pork. Right guys, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed today's film. And please comment, like and subscribe. It all helps us in the channel. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Cheers.